It's Friday. I'm home alone. My boys went on a dad's day out, and I'm sitting in my dining room, and I have a pile of stuff I brought home from the church. There's some books from the library sale recently. I'm not even going to tell you how long ago the library sale was, because I still haven't made it back to my office. Anyway, but I thought it's been a bit since I've kind of had a little bit of a chatty video. I've had some issues go on. I've actually made a couple of videos, but oh, girl, I had a computer cord issue. I had the flu. I had the stomach flu. I had high blood pressure, whatnots go on. Doctor's visits out the wazoo, and then we had Easter. And any of you who are pastors' families, pastors' wives, you know that Easter is just holidays for pastors' families are horrendous. Wonderful, wonderful. I don't want to take anything away from the holiday or Easter, but it just wipes you out. So anyway, I thought it would kind of several weeks ago, I made a video called 5 Things You Need to Add to Your Homeschool Right Now. And one of those I mentioned having a plan for when you are having bad days, bad weeks. Primarily, what I had in mind were for those of us who deal with chronic illness, for those of you who have had seasons of sickness, especially yourself, and for those of you who just simply, you have low energy. You are having you're in a period of life that's just low energy. And let me tell you, I have mentioned before that I have been in treatment for heart failure, which cardiomyopathy is the correct term for what I have, since I was 27, and I am now 47. And I have had 2 critical issues of heart failure that were near death. A few years before I went into heart failure, I had a massive car wreck, and so I'm kind of put together by pins and screws, and so I am not as mobile perhaps as some people my age, nor have I been since the entirety of my child's life. So I have had to learn this firsthand. I've had to learn this the hard way, boots on the ground. Yes, I've had to learn this. There's some guilt that comes along with that. Guilt that comes along, I think, with any mom when you do not feel like you are adequate or you are doing what you need to do. And I'm here to tell you, some of the guilt is just misplaced for most of us. And we need to do better about showing ourselves some grace, giving ourselves a break, and also kind of learning to think outside of the box. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. And I'm going to tell you the way I do things. Now, I have an advantage in the fact that I only have one child, and he is now in high school. And of course, as he was growing up, that was good news, bad news. The good news is that I just had to concern myself with him and his education. The bad news is that I didn't have any support as far as an older sibling, or there wasn't anybody he could play off of or feed off of. So any kind of outside activities, any kind of, anything that I needed to do, I've been it. And so, that has been difficult. And there's also been a lot of guilt with that too. As I said, we mamas are so good at guilting ourselves. And I really think that it doesn't make any difference if you homeschool or not. If you send your kids to public school, or, you're just trying to make your way through. For some reason, we just like to, I don't know. We like to do things to ourselves that are not healthy. And so I'm going to tell you about kind of 3 different ideas. One is that you need to start fostering independence in your child as soon as you can. It's very tempting, especially for those of you who are a little bit more of a perfectionist. You like things done a certain way. That's really tempting to just kind of get it done and get it over with and just say, we're going to work on this tomorrow. The truth is that you need to start now. You need to start now with fostering that independence, no matter how old your child is, with the exception of the bitty babies. So the second thing I'm going to talk to you about is having a plan and planning while you are well, or planning while you have energy, or planning while you are ahead. And so that's the second thing, and that's kind of the bulk of, you know, the practical part of it. The third part of managing this when you are, especially if you're going through a particular rough season and you don't seem to have energy for yourself, you know, to move off, you know, to get off the couch, let alone tend to what needs to be tended to in your home. I think you're gonna have to give yourself some grace. I know I do. I have to give myself grace. I have to let go of some of those expectations that I feel like others around me have put on me, or myself, expectations on myself, and kind of call it what it is. You have to decide, why are you homeschooling? Why is it important that you keep your children at home with you and come to peace with some of those priorities and some of those goals that might not be met? So, heavy stuff. Okay, so first let's talk about fostering independence. All over the interwebs, there are lists of child-appropriate, age-appropriate chores. Okay, you need to look at those. You need to start your little bitties, having them start pick up their toys. You need to start getting them involved in household activities. You need to help them even start learning to entertain and figure some things out themselves. I will tell you that this is one benefit of having an only child. He has never had to worry about entertaining himself. He's never really had anybody to entertain him except for his dad and I. And frankly, we weren't as interesting as the stuff he could get into on his own. So that is one benefit. But you are raising learners, you are raising creative humans, you are raising curious kids, and you need to foster that. And part about that fostering of that being a self-starter, being tenacious, is also providing them with independence and responsibility fairly early. They need to feel capable. They need to feel like they can do it. So start divvying out some chores, start having time, giving them time to themselves that they need to entertain themselves, figure something out. I wonder if somebody's at my house. Somebody always shows up at my house on Fridays when my husband's gone, looking for something, and they know he's not here. Anyway, back to the rant. So you need to consider that. For example, my son has had a list of things that he has been responsible for years. Early on, I don't remember how old he was when we moved into our apartment, but our laundry was on the bottom floor. Now, of course, we haven't lived in the apartment for a few years now, but our laundry was on the basement level of the floor. And so he was responsible for going in, taking the laundry basket down, putting in the washer, feeding in the change, applying the detergent, applying the fabric softener, and going and switching the loads, bringing it up. He would help fold. So that was his responsibility at 10 and 11 years old. I was unable to do the stairs very well, and he was more than capable and thought it a great treat to be able to help me in that way. Presently, he takes care, he has for years, he takes care of the dishwasher, he takes care of the cat box, he's responsible to do his own laundry, and he has a day a week he has to do his own laundry. He has to do it on Tuesdays. He has a day of the week he's responsible to take care of towels, because he's the one who uses most of them. I don't know why it takes one human being 4 or 5 towels to dry themselves off. So there are responsibilities that he has had for a long time. That doesn't mean that we can't add things. Like, for example, the grass is growing a little bit, and so he's going to start being responsible to take care of the general mowing of the grass. Other things, teach your kids how to make simple meals, teach them how to use the microwave or the oven or the stove at appropriate times. Teach them how to think independently and how to make choices and how to be sufficient, self-sufficient. That is one of the biggest things, not just in homeschooling or homeschooling if you have a parent who has a chronic illness, etc., but homeschooling in life, okay? Just living, existing. We need to be creating, we need to be nurturing, fostering independence, creative learners, self-starters, all of those kinds of things. So that's my rant for there. So if you're not doing that, I would encourage you to start. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be maybe exactly the way you want it, but you are doing a better service to your child that way than doing it yourself. I promise. So the second thing I'm going to talk to you about is making a plan while you feel well. So if you are having a good day and you have been meaning to plan up some stuff, well, or even if you don't, okay, let me backtrack. If you have not done this, you need to start this like right away, especially if you feel good. You need to get out a notebook. Now, I have this particular bullet journal I got from Walmart. This is the first one I've had. I use bullet journals a lot in my planning, and this is the first one I've had that has the little dots on it, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I know that traditionally that's a lot of people use those. I don't like the real small ones for this kinds of things, and I'm not sure if I like the dots. I normally have used like a composition notebook or a cute spiral notebook. I recently got these. These were marked down at Walmart for $5. No, 50 cents. Josiah doesn't care what I make his school list in. He has a separate assignment notebook. Anyway, so what you need to do is you kind of need to look at your general school situation. You need it, maybe what area of history you're studying, kind of what you're reading, or get a really good book list. I have mentioned the IEW book list. I will mark that one down, and there's a good one. Where did I see that? 100 books. I'll try and find the one I just recently saw. A good book list, and where you are in science, maybe some interesting science programs. You need to start making yourself a list. Now, this is the list I made for English, and this is not a book list as in like 100 books you need to read before you turn 20 or anything like that. This is just the books that he was responsible for reading this semester. So basically, I made sure that he had what he needed. We had the supplies, and that way we were constantly working down a list and he could look at it. So this is where you come in. You go through kind of your curriculum, kind of the themes, kind of the interesting things. Then you start doing some research. You go on Audible, you go on YouTube, Amazon Prime, Netflix, any of the kind of streaming services that you have. If you have access to any, like I, of course, have written and writing still for schoolhouseteachers.com. They have what they call everyday papers. They have all sorts of kind of bits and pieces of things that you can plug into a day. Find all of those resources and go ahead and make you almost like call it a substitution. When you are a teacher in school, you make like a subfolder, which is basically a plan for a substitute teacher. So basically what you are doing is you are making, you're creating a subfolder for yourself. This is things in it that can easily be accessed by your child, that's enriching. It does not have to be complicated, but it's something that they can grab and do themselves, something they can explore themselves. If it's an Audible book, believe me, we have a lot of resources on Audible. For example, Josiah has been doing another semester of anatomy because he is so fascinated with it. And so I had downloaded his textbook on Audible. I also downloaded a series of lectures from Master Books. Are they Master Books? No, Great Courses. No. I will find it and download it. I will link it. It's on Audible, but it's a series of lectures from a emergency room doctor, you know, laying out these real life emergency room situations, and this is what you need to look for, and this is what you do. Fascinating. He has loved listening to them. So I've included that in the list. So if you have a week that you're sick, you can go back and you just kind of can plug in some of these things. If you have a documentary, if you have a game online that you would like them to play for so many minutes, if you would have even a journal. Let's say you have an ongoing journal, and what you need to do now is, if they are writing in a daily journal, you find like a whole month's worth of journal topics that you can just kind of plug into the assignment list. So that way they're still doing some enrichment, they are doing some learning, they are exploring, and you feel like you are still contributing to their education, even if you feel so poorly. Obviously, there are those days we just need to take a break and we need to take time off. But for the most part, you're going to have those weeks and days that it's just hard to get everything together. And so that is why it's good to have a plan that doesn't involve your time and attention so much as allows them to explore. If you have a younger child, now when Josiah was little, what I had was I had some tubs in my homeschool closet at that time. I had a closet, now I have a room. I had a closet, and what I would do was I had some buckets, and some were math games. Might be, war, some card games in the math bucket. There would be a science bucket full of some easy experiment kind of things we could get at Hobby Lobby. There would be some art kits. There would be, audio books. There were some wonderful sites that you can just plug in and listen to. So there would be some things that he could explore on his own. And I would feel like, I was still contributing to his education. I was still in the game, and I didn't feel like I had dropped the ball. Okay. The truth is that no matter if you need to take a week or two off, they'll be okay. You'll be okay. But this is for you to feel like you are still on top of your life. You are still on top of that homeschool thing. So that's what I would suggest you would do. I'm going to try and link some good resources in my blog, and I'll post that blog post as soon as I can. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk to you about is the guilt. Oh, I could write you a book and a half. In fact, one of these days I might just do that. This is the guilt you feel when you don't feel like you are enough, when you don't feel like you are just failing as a parent, let alone a homeschool parent, that you're not adequate enough, that you probably just should have shipped everybody back to public school anyway, because you are just not seem to be getting the job done. Now, I would tell you, no matter what age your kids are, eventually there's going to come a season in your life that you feel that way. It is just part of it. It's part of it, especially as the kids get closer to high school. You wrestle with, am I doing the right thing? Do I need to send? Am I smart enough? Can I handle this subject enough? I will tell you, if you feel up to the task, you probably will still fail yourself at some point. That's just the nature of the game. It's just what it is. So I want to tell you right now that you need to set aside those feelings of failure. You need to give yourself some grace, and you need to decide, why are you homeschooling in the first place? If you don't particularly like your school system, if you feel like you can give a better education to your child than the school system, if you don't want to deal with the culture of a public school, there's a lot of reasons. When we started homeschooling, it was primarily because we knew Josiah had some issues reading, and he wound up being dyslexic. And we felt like he needed some time. He needed time to kind of grow into that, and time to adjust, and time to figure things out. And I didn't want him to lose that sense of curiosity he had. I didn't want him to lose that confidence he had in himself, because he wasn't meeting the expectations of a school system, of a classroom. So that being said, as we went farther along in the process, I also realized that I loved having him home. I loved the culture of the family together. It became like a lifestyle. I loved the fact that we could talk about our beliefs and our faiths in such an organic and a natural way. And it didn't make any difference what anybody else said. We could talk about this theory, that theory, the other theory. We could talk about loving on people. We could talk about, and we could actually put it to practice. We could go volunteer at a nursing home. We could volunteer at our community kitchen. We could do things that actually made a difference because we weren't constrained to the time that it took to be in the public school system. So those things you have to kind of decide. Is this person I'm helping form, I'm not only helping him form his educational center, but more importantly, I'm helping him form this person, this character. And that became more important to us than some of the other things. So those days that I have felt like I am worthless, I should have just made a different decision, I don't feel adequate enough, and I feel like my illnesses and my issues have just taken its toll on my family. I know it has. I'm not fooling anybody. But what I do also know is that person that my son has become, the kind, compassionate, he's a little bit quirky. He's really quirky. Not just a little bit. He's really quirky. But he also has this kind of comfort. He's comfortable in his own skin. And I don't know if I was at that age. Of course he's a boy, and that makes all the difference in the world. But he's been able to do things that I couldn't even imagine because we have thought outside of the box. So that's what I want to encourage you with, is that no matter how much you feel like whatever you're experiencing is just kind of sucking the joy and the life out of your home, I want you to be encouraged. Give yourself some grace. Think outside of the box. Put some plans into place. Teach your kids how to learn and how to create and how to be creative. Just know that this path might look a little bit different than your friends and family. You might be getting some weird stares and questions. We had all sorts of questions from family members. They've been really worried about Josiah being homeschooled. Really, it all comes out in the wash. So I want you to be encouraged. If you have an idea, if you have a thought, if you experienced this way before, or you have dealt with chronic illness or low days or sick days, and what are you trying and implement in your homeschool to help you with that? I'm curious to see. And I will see you again, my friends.